In the electrifying world of boxing, few names carry the weight and reverence of the Klitschko brothers. These towering figures, Vladimir and Vladimir, ruled the heavyweight division like titans, their fists forging a legacy that echoes through the annals of the sport. Their fights weren't just contests, they were seismic events, clashes of power and precision that held the world in a vice grip of anticipation. Fans didn't just watch, they felt every punch, every moment of tension, as these giants dominated the ring with a blend of skill and sheer force that few could match. But even in the shadow of their reign, a bold challenger emerged from the fringes of the boxing world, a man with fire in his veins and a mouth that never stopped running. His name was David Haye, and he wasn't content to stand quietly in the presence of legends. With brash words, wild stunts, and a hunger to topple the kings, Haye set his sights on the Klitschko brothers, igniting a rivalry that would shake the heavyweight scene to its core. Today, we're stepping into the ring to relive the thrilling saga of Klitschko versus Haye, a collision of pride, power, and a dash of controversy that left the boxing world stunned. Buckle up, because this story is about to take you on a wild ride, and what happened next will leave you speechless. David Haye's journey to the top of the boxing world is the stuff of dreams, a tale of grit, flair, and unrelenting ambition. He burst onto the scene in the early 2000s, a fresh face in the cruiserweight division with a style that turned heads and dropped jaws. Haye wasn't your typical fighter. He moved like a cat, quick and slippery, with a punch that hit like a sledgehammer. His charisma was magnetic, a spark that lit up arenas and drew crowds wherever he went. From the moment he laced up his gloves as a pro, it was clear this man was something special. He didn't just fight, he dazzled, blending speed and power into a cocktail that left opponents reeling and fans cheering. Haye's rise was meteoric. He tore through the cruiserweight ranks, racking up wins with a flair that made him impossible to ignore. His unorthodox approach threw fighters off balance, darting in with lightning-fast jabs, then unloading bombs that ended nights early. Critics couldn't deny his talent, and fans couldn't get enough of his showmanship. By 2008, he'd reached the pinnacle of his division, facing off against Enzo Maccarinelli in a fight that would define his early career. It was a high-stakes showdown, two cruiserweight titans slugging it out for supremacy. Haye didn't just win, he dominated, stopping Maccarinelli in two brutal rounds to claim the undisputed cruiserweight crown. The victory wasn't just a belt around his waist, it was a launchpad, propelling him into the heavyweight conversation with a swagger that said he belonged there. But Haye wasn't satisfied with ruling one division. His eyes were set on a bigger prize, the heavyweight throne, a kingdom long dominated by the Klitschko brothers. He didn't tiptoe into that world, he kicked the door down, announcing his arrival with a bold promise: he'd conquer the giants and unify the heavyweight titles. It was a lofty goal, but Haye had the confidence to back it up, or so he believed. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a performer, a master of hype who knew how to sell a story. His trash talk was sharp, his stunts were wild, and his personality split the boxing world in two. Some saw him as a breath of fresh air, a jolt of excitement in a division ruled by stoic champions. Others called him a loudmouth, a pretender who'd crumble under the weight of his own bravado. That bravado came to a head when Haye set his sights on Vladimir Klitschko, the younger of the two brothers but no less a force in the ring. Haye didn't just call him out, he painted a picture of an epic showdown, a clash that would rewrite the heavyweight script. He promised fans a fight for the ages, a battle where his speed and power would topple the towering Ukrainian champ. The boxing world buzzed with anticipation, hungry for a challenger who could shake up the Klitschko dynasty. But Haye's rise wasn't without its shadows. His bold claims and theatrical antics drew as much criticism as praise, fueling rivalries and setting the stage for a showdown that felt inevitable. This wasn't just about wins and losses anymore, it was about a man daring to challenge the unbreakable, a rising star ready to collide with the established kings. The question lingered in the air: could David Haye back up his words, or would he fall flat against the might of the Klitschkos? The answer was coming, and the world couldn't wait to see it unfold. David Haye knew that to take on a colossus like Vladimir Klitschko, he couldn't just rely on his fists, he needed to get inside his head. And so, he pulled off a stunt that would go down in boxing lore as one of the most outrageous moves ever. It wasn't enough to talk smack in press conferences or throw shade in interviews. Haye went bigger, bolder, and downright shocking. He took to social media and dropped a bombshell, a photo of himself grinning ear to ear, holding what looked like the severed heads of the Klitschko brothers. It was gruesome, it was provocative, and it was pure theater, designed to rattle cages and spark a firestorm. The reaction was instant. The boxing community erupted, split between outrage and fascination. Critics slammed it as tasteless, a cheap shot from a man desperate for attention. Fans, though, were hooked, some appalled, some amused, but all talking about it. That image wasn't just a stunt, it was a declaration of war, a middle finger to the Klitschko legacy. Haye didn't care who he offended, he wanted the world to know he wasn't afraid, that he was coming for the crown with everything he had. Was it genius marketing? Was it a step too far? Whatever you called it, it worked. The rivalry shot into the stratosphere, and the buzz around a Klitschko-Haye fight hit fever pitch. That shocking move didn't just stir the pot, it set the table for a clash that promised to be unforgettable. Haye had positioned himself as the ultimate agitator, a thorn in the side of the heavyweight elite. He wasn't content to wait his turn or pay his dues, he demanded the spotlight, and he got it. The stunt added a layer of drama to an already electric build-up, turning a boxing match into a spectacle of personalities. It raised the stakes, piqued curiosity, and left everyone wondering how this brash challenger would fare against the cool-headed champ. Haye had thrown down the gauntlet in the most audacious way possible, and now, the stage was set for a showdown that would live up to the hype, or crash and burn spectacularly. By the time the Klitschko vs. Haye fight rolled around, the anticipation was off the charts. The date was set, July 2, 2011, in Hamburg, Germany, and the boxing world was holding its breath. Haye had done his job, he'd whipped fans into a frenzy with his antics, turning a title fight into a global event. He thrived on the chaos, feeding off the headlines and the back-and-forth with Vladimir Klitschko. His taunts were relentless, claiming he'd exposed the champ, that his speed would leave Klitschko grasping at air. Vladimir, meanwhile, stayed ice-cold, letting his record do the talking, years of dominance, a jab like a battering ram, and a quiet confidence that unnerved opponents. The build-up was a circus. Press conferences crackled with tension, Haye smirking and tossing barbs while Klitschko stared him down with steely resolve. The media lapped it up, and former champs chimed in, some backing Haye's bold upset bid, others warning he'd bitten off more than he could chew. Social media lit up with debates, predictions flying as fast as the punches soon would. By the time fight night arrived, it felt less like a bout and more like a cultural moment. The Imtech Arena was packed to the rafters, stars and legends rubbing shoulders in the crowd, all there to see history unfold. The weigh-in set the tone. Haye strutted in, flashing that cocky grin, his physique lean and chiseled. Klitschko loomed large, calm and imposing, his eyes locked on his foe. The air was thick with expectation, every glance and gesture dissected by a hungry audience. Then came the ring walks, Haye bouncing to the beat, soaking in the cheers and jeers, while Klitschko marched in with purpose, a warrior ready for battle. As the lights dimmed and the bell loomed, the roar of the crowd hit a deafening peak. This wasn't just a fight, it was a clash of worlds, the brash upstart versus the stoic king. The stage was set, and the boxing universe was about to witness something unforgettable. The bell rang, and the arena exploded. Haye sprang from his corner like a coiled viper, all speed and swagger, circling Klitschko with a glint in his eye. He was here to make good on his promises, darting in with quick jabs, testing the waters against the towering champ. His plan was clear, use his agility to frustrate, slip in and out, land shots before Klitschko could react. For a moment, it looked like he might pull it off, his feet a blur as he danced around the ring. But Vladimir Klitschko wasn't fazed. He stood like a monolith, calm and collected, his jab snapping out with surgical precision. That left hand wasn't just a punch, it was a wall, keeping Haye at bay, forcing him to rethink every move. Klitschko didn't chase, he controlled, dictating the pace with a rhythm honed over years of mastery. Haye fired back with combos, sharp and fast, but they glanced off Klitschko's guard or missed entirely. The champ's reach was a nightmare, his jab landing with a thud that echoed through the arena, each one chipping away at Haye's early fire. The first round was a chess match with gloves, Haye probing, Klitschko countering. The challenger's speed kept him in the game, but Klitschko's experience started to show. He absorbed Haye's flurries, then answered with a right cross that froze the crowd. Haye stayed upright, but the message was sent, this wasn't going to be easy. As the round ended, the fans were buzzing, split between awe at Klitschko's poise and hope that Haye's bravado might still pay off. The fighters retreated to their corners, sweat gleaming, eyes locked across the ring. Round 1 was just the beginning, and the war was only heating up. As the fight wore on, the tide began to turn, and it turned hard. Klitschko found his groove, that jab becoming a relentless piston, popping Haye's head back with every shot. What started as a tool to measure distance morphed into a weapon of control, disrupting Haye's rhythm and sapping his momentum. The challenger's speed, his ace in the hole, started to falter under the pressure. He couldn't dance forever, Klitschko cut off the ring, shrinking the space, forcing Haye into a fight he didn't want. The champ's confidence grew with every round. His face was a mask of focus, his punches crisp and deliberate. Haye tried to rally, lunging in with hooks and uppercuts, but Klitschko's guard was ironclad. Then came the counters, vicious shots that landed with a crack, rocking Haye and sending ripples through the crowd. The once vocal challenger went quiet, his movements sluggish, his bravado fading. Klitschko smelled blood, stepping up the pace, mixing jabs with hooks that thudded against Haye's frame. The turning point hit like a thunderclap. In the 6th round, Klitschko unleashed a combo, a jab, a right, then a left hook, that sent Haye stumbling. The arena erupted, sensing the shift. Haye's legs wobbled, his defense crumbling as Klitschko pressed forward. It wasn't just power, it was strategy, a masterclass in breaking an opponent down. Haye fought back with desperation, but his punches lacked snap, his energy draining under the champ's relentless assault. The crowd roared louder, some cheering Klitschko's dominance, others pleading for Haye to find a miracle. The fight had flipped, and Vladimir Klitschko was taking over. By the championship rounds, the story was written in sweat and bruises. Klitschko was in full command, his jab a metronome, his right hand a hammer. Haye, battered and fading, couldn't find an answer. In the 11th, a thunderous jab rocked him, followed by a right that sent him to the canvas. The knockdown was a dagger, the crowd gasped, Haye scrambled up, but the spark was gone. Klitschko didn't rush, he didn't need to. He stalked his prey, landing shot after shot, each one a nail in the coffin of Haye's title dreams. The final bell rang, and the outcome was inevitable. The judges' scorecards were a formality, unanimous decision for Vladimir Klitschko. The arena shook with cheers, a mix of triumph for the champ and disbelief at Haye's unraveling. Klitschko raised his arms, the WBA, IBF, and WBO belts still his legacy burnished by another commanding win. Haye stood in his corner, head bowed, the weight of the night settling in. It was a brutal end to a hyped-up dream, a clash that proved the champ's mettle and left the challenger humbled. Vladimir Klitschko had defended his throne, and the boxing world took notice. When the dust settled, the Klitschko-Haye fight stood as more than just a victory, it was a defining chapter in a heavyweight saga. Vladimir's win wasn't a fluke, it was a showcase of why he and his brother Vladimir had ruled the division for over a decade. His poise under pressure, his ability to dismantle a flashy foe, cemented his place among the all-time greats. The bout laid bare the truth, experience and discipline could trump speed and hype, a lesson etched into the canvas that night. Fans and pundits picked apart the fight for weeks. Klitschko's jab, his ring IQ, his unflappable calm, they marveled at it all. Haye's bold build-up, once a spark of excitement, now looked like a gamble that didn't pay off. He'd sold the fight with flair, but in the ring, he'd been outclassed. The loss stung, A harsh reality check for a man who dared to challenge the kings. Yet, in time, it forged a grudging respect. Haye later tipped his hat to Klitschko's skill, a nod from one warrior to another. The Klitschko brothers' reign rolled on, Vladimir piling up wins until his retirement in 2017, his record a towering monument to their dominance. Haye fought again, but the magic of that 2011 night never returned. Their clash became a touchstone, a story fans still tell, of the brash challenger who flew too close to the sun, and the champ who burned brighter. The Klitschko legacy endured, a benchmark for future heavyweights, a reminder of what it takes to rule the ring. Years later, that fight still resonates, a thrilling tale of power, pride, and the unrelenting spirit of boxing's golden era.